I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Happy New Year! Welcome to the Curb Your Enthusiasm after show, and we are curbing our enthusiasm. We're going to try and provide sufficient praise. I am Christian Bladt, joined as always by the P-Cube dancers at the other end of the desk. James Maple.
Hello, everybody out there.
Flobo, Boyce, Lobito, new content every week
Cube it up,
here
man.
at the desk. There's so much to talk about. Rachel Goodman may or may not be joining us. Here in Los Angeles, we have something that the rest of the country doesn't have. We have something called traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's
sometimes
the
it really just interferes with the best laid plans of Mice and Clive Owen.
When was the last time as traffic really like got you in trouble? Like, has it been recent?
Well, I never leave the valley, so no.
Okay,
I
fine.
I'm like clueless. I don't get on the freeway.
Gotcha. I live at the airport, so every day.
Yeah, no, it's often, actually.
Yes, I was going to say it's often, quite often for me.
So let's go big overview, big picture of this episode, Insufficient Praise. James Maple.
So I have to say, I got to be completely honest. That's what we do here on AfterBuzz TV.
That's
Not
right.
my favorite episode.
What?
Yeah, to me,
All right.
you know, as one of the newcomers to Curb,
Sure.
I had such like high. It was like hit after hit after hit after hit with all the episodes. This one to me was kind of predictable, but I still thought it was funny, and there was a bunch of social cues that I thought were kind of interesting that I want to get into later on.
Yeah, well, as is so often the case with the show, everything kind of comes crashing together at the end, which I thought worked really well. Flobo Boyce.
I am inclined to agree. This is one of the episodes where you kind of saw the seams. You know, things will be planted in Act 1 are going to pay off in Act 4. I will say this, though. The charm of Clive Owen knows no bounds. So I actually like this episode because he's just so smooth.
I did think that he was great in this episode.
Yeah,
I
he was
do
great.
like when celebrities play themselves and they're being ridiculous. Like
So
when they're,
sensitive.
if they're playing themselves and they're just being a normal person, it's not as much fun. So yeah, I agree a little bit. You could see the seams in this one. It's as though somebody were sitting in the dugout and hitting a trash can and letting us know which pitches were coming.
right.
Just picking that out of nowhere. I don't know where
Christian Blatt.
that
You're my
comes
hero.
from.
You're my
Just
hero.
out of nowhere.
Hey, I'm with it.
Yeah.
Support.
Let's go, Mets.
But again, lots of fun stuff in here. Some great moments all the way throughout. Let's talk about the mink stole, which I think is sort of the beginning of the snowball rolling down the hill. And I was talking to you both beforehand. I was surprised that it being a real fur mink stole didn't come into anything.
Yeah.
Nobody threw paint at anybody.
Nope.
There was nobody who got approached. Think of all the fundraisers that Larry and Cheryl and all the people on the show do.
Right.
Things for animal charity. So just nothing. Just a real mink fur. What did you think about the fact that? Well, first of all, did anybody look better than Leon in the mink stole? I mean, he had the hat and the boop boop a doop. Boop boop. Yeah.
Leon's class, man.
But give us your thoughts on the mink stole, James.
To me, like you said, I'm very, very shocked that the mink stole didn't come up and further in the episode. You know, I keep saying I'm new to the show, so I'm very, very particular about the things I pay attention to, and I'm like, this is such a very, very particular thing. And I was expecting, like you said, and the show takes place in L.A. Like everyone's such like a liberal, like no, save the animals kind of out here.
He's even like loudly saying at that restaurant that it's real fur. And
Yeah.
there's the table of people who already
that
don't
part was
like them.
hilarious.
Right.
So I expected that table to be
Yeah.
to make a point about it,
Yeah.
but that's not the road that they traveled on.
I was really hoping it would come back up in some facet, but it didn't, surprisingly. So I think that kind of took me for a loop.
And that's to be totally fair. I mean, it's very specific material, and it's a stole. When's the last time you've seen a stole?
I don't think I've ever heard that word before.
I think they have graduations, right? That's what it's called. The little
shawl?
ribbons. The little ribbons are called stoles too.
Oh, really?
That's the only
Okay.
reason why I know what a stole is.
Yeah.
Again, I thought it would pay off on some other level because it's such a unique time period type piece of clothing. But I don't know. Maybe another episode it may come back.
Well, it may, but we have to investigate the condition of that stole after the way the episode ends. And it ties directly into our guest star, Isla Fisher. Well, there's two guest stars, but I thought she was fantastic. Most of you might know her as Mrs. Borat, Mrs. Ali G. She is in real life married to Sacha Baron Cohen, but she's starred in movies of her own, you know. I mean, it had been a little while since I think I'd seen her in anything. I believe she took some time to become a mom, but I thought it was very funny, the idea of the professional crier. Flobo, Now, you usually just cry for free. You don't get paid for it.
Exactly, man. People
when you're
always
watching NXT and you run out of your snack, your bowl is out, all of a sudden has no snacks left in it, then you cry.
And it happens right when the match is about to meet the most part. No, I totally get it. Professional criers are actually a real profession. I know they'll come to funerals and cry and all that. You can actually hire people out to have different levels
Are you
of
serious
crying.
that you knew about this beforehand?
yeah,
It was like a real thing?
I did know about this
No,
before.
I didn't want to interject, but it really is it's a real
really
thing.
a thing, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I just assumed that it was just some
Wow.
BS for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. There's different tiers. You know, you can cry, you can boohoo, you can wail, go on the
there's
call.
high-
I
hierarchies to
definitely
this?
want in on this.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known about this as a possible career vocation
I know,
24 years
I'm
ago.
rethinking things after
People
Buzz.
who are alive can like pay for in the death in advance. I have people show up to their wedding to cry at their wedding.
Oh, well, you mean at their funeral?
At the funeral, yeah. Cry.
That's a Freudian
wedding
slip
too.
there, switching up wedding and funeral. That's true.
Freudian slip.
That's true. You want people crying at your wedding because then other people will say, yeah, well, I think I'll probably have to put that in my will that I need a professional crier there because everybody
absolutely.
else will just be like, so when do we eat?
Yeah.
You know?
Not here nor there.
Deli platter from Cantor's? What are we having?
Cantas, oh no.
I'm just kidding. I'm a Brent's Deli guy.
Hey.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, man of culture as well.
But I don't know. I thought she was great. I sort of liked this preposterous idea, which apparently, according to Flobo, is a real life thing. But Isla Fisher is a professional crier. I thought she did a nice job. James, sort of watching the whole drama unfold, what did you think about Isla Fisher's character, whose name was Carol?
I thought Carol was a unique person to throw into the mix of the cast. I mean, she kind of left this episode.
Oh, she may have left us.
Yeah,
yes.
so I don't know where she stands moving forward, but I would like to see more of her. I can appreciate the fact that like her profession kind of bit her in the behind later on.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice kind of twist on things, and I still can't get over the fact that professional crier is a thing. When we
you
get
rock
done
my
here,
world, Flobo.
I'm going to update my resume and try to become a professional crier.
Yeah.
It's the part that didn't ring true for me. If I was a professional crier, when I'm off duty, I'm off duty. All right.
Right.
So the fact she got that to get the mink coat to be like,
But here's the thing: she's never off duty.
That's what
and
I was
she wanted that
thinking.
coat.
Yeah.
and
She got it.
yeah, I mean, I thought it was such a very specific story. At first, I'm like, were her parents Thomas and Martha Wayne?
Right.
Because this sounds an awful lot like how Batman's parents got killed.
and then Joe Cool, and then the
Yeah.
other
Right, but then
Oh
they
my
go down.
God,
Then they
it
go down to the
is.
subway. Yeah, so that's the difference. Is
It
that they
is.
went down to the subway,
Yeah.
and it wasn't possibly the Joker who,
that
depending on
doesn't
which
count.
iteration.
Non-canon.
So it's true. So
That blew my mind.
so right away I'm just like, well, this is an odd story.
Yeah.
And then when Richard Lewis is just like, oh, she's a professional crier, and he seems completely just unaware that he's apparently been had on many occasions. Like she cried over Italian food versus Chinese food.
Yeah.
And come on.
Yeah.
You just go with the Chinese food. I mean, it's
Right.
That's an easy
You don't need to
choice.
cry.
I mean, yeah, chow mein, man, it's awesome.
I'm a little bit more of a lo mein guy.
I'm
but you know what
okay.
saying.
I'm
Well,
on
we have
Christian's
lo
side
mein,
with
yeah,
that.
lo mein's great, yeah. But we're eating in California, so you don't get lo mein as much.
Yeah,
That's true. It's a great point. But I don't know. I thought that the whole thing was. I thought it was funny, but Richard, obviously, understandably upset, tells Larry to stay out of his affairs. If Larry did that, I don't think we had a show anymore. I mean, if he stayed out of everybody else's
Right.
business, if he just minded his own business, the show would be like 5 minutes.
That would be
right?
funny. Just him in his house, like drinking coffee, and the theme plays.
But he would get into so much trouble.
Yeah. Like he can get in trouble in his own. I mean, he got in trouble in his own house this episode.
It's true.
with the
It's
sex
because
doll.
of the
So,
we'll talk
he
about
can
the,
make trouble
the
no matter where
housekeeper.
he goes.
I did like how they brought the professional crier Carol to sort of the absurd like exponent of her character, where it's like, well, they hire her for the Clive Owen play, and he's so moved he ends up like seemingly like dating her, but then he finds out that she's a professional crier.
Yeah.
He's very upset, and of course, the truck. You can hear the horns.
Why are we laughing?
Because it's a comedy show and it's funny, and Isla Fisher's fine. So I think that mink stole is fine.
Yeah, it's the most Looney Tune things that can happen. in a sitcom.
What do you think? Do you think that the truck killed her and ran over the stall? Do you think one or the other has survived? James, I'll ask you first. What do you think is the fate of that truck crash?
I think I want to see Carol more, so I hope that the stole is null and void and it's gone and it's destroyed, and she has to like, I don't know, incorporate some type of like crying in further episodes, because I can appreciate the fact that her crying played such a heavy part in different aspects of this episode. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I want to see more Carol.
The Seinfeld answer would be she's dead. But
yes, that is the Seinfeld answer.
But I will say this: how cool, funny, weird, odd it would be if she survived and Larry had to go to the hospital to get his stole back.
That'd be funny. Now, at some point in theory, we're going to have a funeral for Marty Funkhauser. They keep talking about how he's away, he's in Japan, he's fallen in love. But that's Super Dave Osborne, who in real life has passed away since the last season. So possibly, maybe we just see her at Marty Funkhauser's funeral. Perhaps. Maybe, so maybe I think that would be great if we just didn't see her again until like an actual funeral or an occasion to cry.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see if we see her again. But I'm more inclined to just think we're not actually going to see her again. Right.
A boy can hope, though.
Yeah, so we'll circle back into Clive Owen because we've already brought him up. Just this idea of his one-man play. How much do you guys wish that you had an opportunity to see the one-man play?
0. But I will say this: Clive Owen is so cool, man. Inside man, BMW's a driver. The fact that he's doing something where he's playing such a archetype of the sensitive actor.
Yeah,
I want some praise. Can someone just give me the praise?
For Kon-Tiki,
Yeah, for Kon-Tiki. Yeah, to me it was awesome.
It's again. As I said before, I like when these actors play ridiculous versions of themselves. What did you think of Clive Owen's inclusion in this week's Mirth?
I thought it was really interesting. A part of me thought to myself, is he acting or is he really like that in real life? I like to believe that he's not, and knowing his work for the past 15, 20 years.
Like that. Because if he was like that, he probably wouldn't want it portrayed on the show.
Yeah, touche. Yeah. But with us living in Los Angeles, we know so many actors who I think have adopted that kind of personality.
Yeah,
so
they're all kind of like that.
It was a good like tongue-in-cheek moment for sure. It added a nice bit of humor to the episode.
What is pretty funny is that as a performer too, I do stand-up comedy. I try not to ask anyone how was everything, because I'm a firm believer they'll tell you. If you're great, they'll tell you. If you suck, they'll give you notes. Just don't ask. What do you think?
Yeah,
I mean it's the old rule for being a lawyer. Don't ask a question that you don't already know the answer to.
Yeah.
So don't ask, what'd you think of the show?
Yeah.
Because I don't ask anybody. You have people in the chat want to tell us, but afterwards I don't want to ask anybody what they think of the show. I don't want to hear it. It'll hurt me too much.
And then you might cry.
That's true.
I thought that he was very funny. Let's talk about the goings on over at Latte Larry's / Mocha Joe's. Mocha Joe has a new investor, and I enjoyed the reference to the General Lee film that was established earlier in the season.
That's a nice callback.
It seems that Ted is very motivated to spite the spite shop, right, Flobo?
That's the thing I don't get, but I get. The fact that everyone's second favorite sweetheart, Ted Danson, the guy who's not Tom Hanks, is so mad, so spiteful, he's having a spite to the spite shop. And Mocha Joe's living it, and poor Larry is thinking about how he's going to counteract that, but he's so preoccupied with the P-box, we'll get to in a minute, that he's not even thinking about how big a threat this can actually be for him.
Yeah, well, that does bring us to the P cube, by the way.
Sorry about that.
Patent pending.
The P-box. I apologize, y'all.
There's a couple layers to this. The first is why are you reinventing the urinal?
Yeah.
Also, there is the no defecation rule.
Right.
So there are no toilets, which, if Rachel were here, I would point out that does this mean that, and it does, by the way, that women can't use the restroom?
That's exactly
right.
Is there a women's room with a toilet? Because it doesn't seem that way.
No.
It seems to be an entire oversight. It's just men are just allowed to pee there, and then the idea that it would be installed with a penis sensor.
Right.
Yes.
So it seems very complicated.
Right.
Yeah.
Penis detected.
Can I just say that I thought the guy was totally trolling him?
I did too.
Oh,
well, that's the problem with the way the show works.
I thought so too.
Is because when somebody's running with one of these ridiculous ideas, they're obviously joking and they're having fun in the moment, and you're like, "Is this real?"
Yeah.
And then you see the P cube later, like,
it's real.
Oh, it was real.
It was real.
Yeah, and of course, Leon makes the good point is like, yeah, this is fine for your small size people, but I got to stand back. And the whole point is to not have the splashback.
Right.
So Do you guys think that the P Cube restroom situation is going to go well, James? Do you think this is going to go well for Latte Larry?
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
I think that was a safe bet on that. I do want to point out the fact that in Larry's prototype drawing, he mentioned that there would be a ramp as well.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then
you're right.
and then the construction worker's like, well, what if they pee on the ramp?
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty interesting point too. But I mean, I would love to see the future of the urinal, but I don't think that.
I don't think this is
Larry
it.
David is hitting it on the.
I mean, look, we live in an age where for decades they can flush themselves, so you don't have to touch anything.
Right.
And for the women in the audience, you're missing out on a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole
You don't
experience.
have to touch anything if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Ladies, men are gross. Continue.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah, we are.
we know we're gross, so we don't want to get grosser. So let's not touch anything.
Right.
So I think that was funny, and I feel like that was some nice building for a future episode.
That's a perfect example of how Larry's heart's in the right place. Because I've been betrayed by urinals before with the
What do you mean
splashback.
betrayed?
Because the splashback, or you hit the wrong angle,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like, oh no, but now you got pee in your clothes, but you can't
Yeah,
tell anybody because
yeah.
they'll just know you have a problem. So I get
Look,
this.
sometimes I don't know. You're at Shea Stadium. You have one too many, and maybe you get your own splashback on your shorts, and then you're like, well, now I can't go back to see my friends for like a good half hour until it dries.
Or in Dodger Stadium when they had the traw.
Oh,
where you had to, like,
well, that's a whole different
man,
experience.
forget it.
Oh my
Forget
God, Rachel would be horrified.
Yes.
The idea of the
a
trough.
giant bucket with no dividers.
Yeah, and it's just like, can I help you? No. The first time I saw a trough, I was like, yeah, I don't have to go anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You get used to it because eventually you got to go.
But
it's like, no, wait.
There's only a queue back
I'll
then.
go home.
Go home.
Yeah, if only Dodger Stadium had a queue.
Yeah.
Now that would be good. Yeah, Larry could try and get them installed elsewhere. Let's talk about. Now I mentioned Marty Funkhauser, but let's talk about Freddie Funkhauser, Vince Vaughn, and he's the one who sends Larry the love doll,
Love doll.
which is not something that you see very often anymore. At least I don't know. I guess I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want to assume for anybody out there in the audience. You
They're
never
a lot
know.
more advanced these days.
Yeah,
Christian.
I mean, look, the inflatable sex doll, which of course the mailman gives Larry a little have fun.
Hilarious.
Super creepy.
Yeah.
So weird.
What did you think about the amount of time spent on this sex doll in the show, Flobo?
So this is definitely like the Hitchcock like bomb under the table, right? How is this going to screw over Larry? I want
Yeah.
to know how exactly it's going to be. It gets blown up, and his poor maid is looking at this idea like, "What's this?"
Right.
Like it's like an American Girl doll.
Yeah,
they
it's
just
a
forgot
perfect
to send the
example.
clothes.
I just saw it happen. I'm so glad it happened the way it did because
Yeah.
it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it could have been
yeah.
a lot worse.
Yeah.
And I just like that. Leon named her. Was it Cherry?
Sherry.
Yeah. So,
Cherry would have been funnier.
yeah. See, I'm just trying to think outside the box there, Leon. But yeah, I think, and he couldn't pop it, and he wouldn't get rid of it, and so yeah, I mean, it was only a matter of time. I mean, we have what was her name? The maid Matilda obviously didn't want to work for Susie anymore,
Because
which
of her potty mouth.
anyone can understand not
Yeah.
wanting to as any person in any kind of service industry just not wanting to work for Susie Green. I completely get it. The way she is on the show, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that the way it all unfolded, you sort of got to see that it was about to happen. And the mailman tells Ted Danson. Ted Danson drives over to Cheryl's, still mad at her, but wants her to know. So in the space of just the last couple minutes of the episode, Matilda the maid sees Larry. He's trying to deflate it, but
With his pelvis.
yes, exactly.
I mean, we've all done that before. Like, deflated a
But that-
beanbag and put your weight on it to get all the air out.
After
I don't know about
the
thrusting,
when
though.
when I put the air mattress back in the garage, I mean that's how
you gotta thrust it
That's how
back
I
in
do
there.
it. Yeah, I don't know how else am I supposed to get the air out of it.
That's it.
What did you think of the entire sex doll storyline, James?
I thought that was a great moments rather. I didn't think it was going to play as much of a large role in the episode as it did. I'm glad that I was wrong and it happened that way. One question though I have for you guys is that was it ever concluded that Leon had sex with the doll?
No, it was just alluded to, which I thought
right?
was funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I thought and they had an exchange too where Leon's like looking him like down. He's like, "Why you always look at me like that?" I thought that was funny when they got kind of close, but it never really came to light if he had or had not. But I think that it led to a funny hypothetical situation that it put us in.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, he fell in love with it. He couldn't pop her, or he couldn't deflate her himself. So.
Yeah. So I thought that I thought that played out really well. So that came from Freddie Funkhauser, who is also there with Uncle Moke, which is quite the interesting name, who Larry makes sure he finds out about internet porn.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
That becomes a problem because once you know about internet porn, I mean, are you going to watch television after that?
Right. That's true.
You know, it's like I could, or,
and it's free.
And I did think that was funny that the solution, because Freddie wanted him to tell you, he's just like, here, have fun. And Uncle Buck seemed pretty happy with that deflated sex doll.
Yeah, who wants to use sex doll, guys?
Yeah, deflated and potentially used sex
Yeah,
doll.
Potentially.
It's almost like put that ad on Craigslist just to see who writes back.
That would be
It's like,
hilarious.
lightly used, entirely deflated.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. It was like, oh man, Larry, what'd you do? He has a problem now. Like, it was almost like he causes wildfire up on,
Yeah, but that's Larry for you. One other thing that we should talk about is, we were talking about Clive Owen before, but what we didn't address was the praise phone call that Larry didn't seem to want to make, but Jeff has a new client. He thought it was a good idea. This episode is entitled "Insufficient Praise."
Yeah.
Do you, Flobo, think that Larry provided insufficient praise to Clive Owen on that initial voicemail?
I think what he said, I think was pretty fine. I mean, it's still a gesture. We live in an age now when someone calls you, you're like, I gotta put that to voicemail. 'Cause I have no idea who that is.
Right,
So the fact that there is a message that's directed to you with a personalized message is great. And we'll get to it a little bit later. I don't think what Larry did was perfect as far as him answering it, but once you're doing it, it's fine. I don't understand Clive's drive to be like, I need more praise.
Yeah. I agree. I thought that it was a little the phone call. It was more like the gesture itself that I thought should have gotten more credence. Yeah. And the words. I mean, he could have zhuzhed it up a bit more. Like got to fluff the actor's ego.
Yeah.
But I think overall, it was a fine, perfectly generic, regular praise. Not warranted for Clive to react in such a way that he did. But nonetheless, I think the phone call was like a nice gesture.
Chris, nice question. Because I know you're like a radio professional, right? Has anyone given you praise and you're like, I need more. I just need...
It depends, It depends on where it's coming from. It's like sometimes if somebody is giving you praise, it's more like, tell me more, like I just want to, I don't want the praise to end. But I would never tell someone that if the praise was insufficient.
Right.
I would just internalize that and realize that the problem for the insufficient praise wasn't with the person giving it. It was the fact that I'm an awful human being with no self-worth.
There it is.
That shouldn't be performing or speaking in front of anyone. And how could anybody listen to someone with a voice as annoying to me? Not that this ever happened. This is hypothetical.
Never.
Wow,
I'm speaking that out of the air.
That was very specific.
Just thinking.
Very specific.
Hey, man. Hey. I get your package discreet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. And by the way, the mailman's name is Lionel. I was searching for it before, and I think it's funny because that is actually a very... How many of you know a Lionel?
I don't know.
There was a Lionel on the Jeffersons. That's the
Yeah,
only Lionel I've ever... Well, of course.
Richie.
I was going to say Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
All night long.
Yeah.
Dancing on the ceiling.
I was going to say a white dude. I don't think many Lionels are.
Yeah.
No, Lionel the mailman.
Only white Lionel that I know.
Yeah. So anyway, so those are all of our storylines, and this was an average episode.
Okay.
A couple of good lines, like Richard Lewis talking about how after he broke up with Carol, maybe I could have had a baby with her, and Larry's just like, baby, you're 200.
Yeah.
And he looks every day of that 200 years.
Yeah, bro.
It seems like every week it's like Richard Lewis has lost a little bit more weight. I'm like, bro, you didn't have that much to start with.
That's a slow decline. I don't know what's going on with
and I'm
him.
like, this is him healthy.
Yeah.
And he looks like that. So
It's very frail.
yeah.
Make sure you guys drink your water, go to sleep every night.
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
right.
you exercise.
Someone should just pour a watering can on Richard Lewis when he goes to bed. Just moisturize.
Just hydrate them.
Yeah. So before we get to news, let's do our curb correction corner, which is our regular feature here on the show. Flobo, let's have you go first. What was your curb correction corner?
So this is an awkward moment for a lot of people in the situation. This is when Larry had to make the call. We got the call. The phone was pushed in his face to say a word to Clive. I would not have done it. I would have been like, I am not here.
Right.
Only because I hate the feeling of that. Because the implication is saying, I'm saying something because I got browbeaten to doing it. So
Yeah, Larry,
that's
it's very unlike Larry to not put his hands up to not accept the phone, and then the call is from Jeff's phone. So then Clive Owen's going to have an empty voicemail left by Jeff, so it's on Jeff really to fill it. What was your curb correction corner?
Mine is more of like a generic thing that happened quite often in this episode. I feel like a lot of people just kind of showed up at other people's houses.
Yes.
I don't play that mess. I'm gonna need you to give me a text, a call. Are you around?
You gotta schedule an appointment, hang with Mabel.
That's even like with even this is kind of an extension, but like even when people like want to FaceTime you, I'm gonna need you to text me or call me.
You don't
like,
place the FaceTime call.
That's way different.
That's only reserved for
Also,
like my parents and my immediate siblings.
and especially like Skype.
Yes.
What are you doing? Are you calling me from 2007?
Exactly.
I don't want. Well, I kind of want that phone call because then you can go back to the future too and have that person bet on sports. But anyway, it's not digress.
Yeah. So I think that Ted showed up to Cheryl's house telling him about the doll. There's a couple of other instances. Larry showed up.
Larry showed up at Carol's house.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I guess he can't text her because he doesn't know her.
In that instance though, with Cheryl and Ted, I do feel like because they were married, I give them a little bit of leeway.
Cheryl and Ted weren't married. They were just dating.
And Larry, rather.
Yeah, so Cheryl just shows up to the house she used to live in.
Yeah, so like in that instance, I'm like,
but
okay.
You are right. And look, it's you just sort of, it's the mentality of an earlier time where everybody just didn't text each other, you know? I mean, so many sitcoms, like think about, we were talking about Seinfeld, just people just walking in the door. I mean, the realistic thing they did is that they would, the buzzer would ring and they'd actually unlock the door.
Right.
Because otherwise, like other shows, you just imply like, oh, so that apartment is just unlocked all day.
Right.
Yeah. Like all the friends, none of them locked
exactly
the door.
What I was thinking about.
I guess, only white people lived in the building. So
man.
That's true. Different time in
Facts are facts.
What was Cheryl's intent, though? That's the question I had. Was she going to go over there to reconcile and be like, I've heard these rumors about you. Oh, my gosh, they're
that's a good
true.
point.
Like, what was she doing?
Yeah.
I think she just had to know for herself that it wasn't true. But it's preposterous.
Yeah.
For me, the curb correction corner is just the whole concept of the P cube. This isn't even reinventing the wheel. I mean, this is reinventing the urinal, which is much more important than the wheel. I'm just like, I don't know exactly what this is supposed to accomplish. It was just, look, if you're the contractor, you're gonna take that money,
right?
Right. But you're just like, this is such a dumb idea. And I had the same thought as you were saying, Flobo, that the guy was kind of placating him a little bit, like, oh, and you want me to do this?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little ridiculous. We do have a news item, right, James?
Yes, we do.
So, and I believe you sent that to J-Lo, but let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And then we can...
we'll see if I can get it in time, but... Well, we'll talk about it at least. So, as you all know, I sent you the email. I sent our entire panel like a aggressive, like, oh my God, I can't believe
this. Very exciting.
A lot of exclamation points.
It was like, this is unreal. So it's always so interesting when a show translates into real life. And this week, we definitely had that happen with our great quotes around that, President Donald Trump. So if we recall back to a couple episodes ago where Larry was wearing the MAGA hat as a people repellent, so our President Donald Trump thought that this was an actual the MAGA hat Larry wearing was somehow boasting his
an act of allegiance.
Right. So he posted something about tough guys for Trump. And ended up using Larry David as a poster boy for that.
Which, by the way, when you think of Larry David, does either the words tough or guy come to mind?
Yeah. Not so much of an underlying theme for that man there. But nonetheless, Donald Trump posted this as tough guys for Trump, not realizing that he was indeed the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
Because if we recall back to the scene where Larry's driving and he cuts off the guy on the motorcycle and then puts on the hat.
Sure.
And the guy's like, oh, okay. Like, oh, no, you're one of us. Like, I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
So I thought that was such an interesting thing to see Donald Trump internalize this tough guys for Trump as a boastful moment for his reelection.
Yeah,
I
just
assume.
not, and mostly keeping the politics out of it. It is funny that the intent of Larry wearing the hat is completely lost on the president, who you would assume has a staff of people who are supposed to point out things like, no, actually, that wasn't in favor of.
So this begs a question then. Does that mean that our president just has a Google alert for himself? Because I feel like it was taken without context, doesn't it?
I would.
He very well.
Absolutely.
I do.
I mean, if he's tweeting in the middle of the night and first thing in the morning, he probably does. He's like,
Fair enough.
He's like, what are they saying about me?
When you just said that, you would think that because he has a staff around him.
Yeah.
But part of me thinks like the staff knew anyway, and they were like, "Yeah, go ahead and do that."
Well, look,
Like,
anybody who's
go ahead
ever
and do
worked
that.
with or for a celebrity, sometimes you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to be the one to tell them that.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can
yeah.
find that on their own or
Yeah.
however. So we do have an image, I guess, of Larry from the
Yes, with the Make
MAGA
America
hat,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was such a funny moment.
It is a very funny moment in the show, and just completely lost.
Yeah, and there's nothing like I said, nothing like having real life Curb in real life, and we
Yeah.
got it for sure 100% with this.
I heard
news
an
story.
audio clip of a panel that Larry did at the 92nd Street Y.
Exactly. Yep.
Was that what the clip was?
Yes, at the very end.
So do we have that? J-Lo, was that in the email that James sent, or?
No.
Okay, we'll just talk about it. It's
Yeah.
fine. And he was interviewed by Yankees broadcaster Michael Kay, who
Yeah.
also is a sports talk radio host in New York. And Michael Kay asked him, what about the fact that this could alienate half of your potential audience? And Larry...
Can you say what he said
Well,
on live TV?
I'll just say the part where he's like, get alienated, you know?
Right, yeah.
He's like, yes, get alienated. That's fine. That's, we don't need them. Yeah, we could have sworn, but it's not entirely necessary.
but they're doing the
So
show.
I thought it was very funny. And and also like, I don't know, that seemed like probably would have been a very entertaining panel, just hearing Larry talk about all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are out of time this week. Sorry, our apologies to Rachel Goodman, who didn't make it here. But
It's all good.
Think about all the urinal talk she missed.
Yeah,
this is
super
for the
uncomfortable.
best.
This is it should have been an all boys.
Yeah, this
panel.
was a good one for the boys.
Today,
but,
urinal chat, yeah.
yeah, but you know what? I think the P Cube's going to come back. So
I
we'll
hope
have to talk
so.
about it
Fingers
then.
crossed. And we'll do our dance
But with new big ideas, far better than the P Cube, Flobo Boyce, where can people find you?
You can find me at Flobo Boyce on Twitter, at Flopito on Instagram, and of course, Flopito.com.
James Maple.
You can find your boy James Maple at Terrell James Maple on Instagram and Twitter. Holla at me.
And you can find me, Christian Bladt, on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you want shows where we talk a lot more about our president and politics, you can find the Trump Report this week on Wednesday at 4 Pacific, and Flobo and myself Thursdays at 9 p.m. Pacific for the Star Trek Picard After Show. That is all the time we have for this week. But until then, may all of your friends provide sufficient praise to you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.